Hey friend, welcome to Red Hot Mindset. I am so glad you're tuning in with me today. And today I have a really powerful story to share with you, and I can't wait for you to hear it. This is one of the last of my 2020 Boston Marathon Mama series, and it's one of the most impactful. Today's guest knows what it's like to have many ups and downs as she goes after her goals. The struggles she's faced probably would have made most of us quit, but she is determined and keeps fighting to achieve the dreams that she sets for herself. Wendy Braithwaite is a fluently bilingual French and English human resources professional who works full-time for the Canadian Federal Public Service. She's been married to her husband, who is also a marathoner, for 17 years, and she's also a mom to a beautiful and talented 13-year-old daughter who is a competitive all-star cheerleader. She's her pride and joy, and Wendy will always forgo a long run to attend her out-of-town competitions. She's also been known to do long runs on hotel treadmills. Anyone else? Oh, hotel treadmills. Gotta love them. Long runs, that sounds terrible. A big part of her story is her diagnosis of MS. She was diagnosed with MS in 2002 while living in the majestic Canadian Rocky Mountains. MS was a shock, and with no family history, it was an enigma and a new battle for her to fight. She's had a difficult time in the beginning, but had great medical care and has stabilized over the years. Her main goal is to cross the finish line on Boylston Street one day, and she'd like to do another ultra, even though she said she never would do it again. She learned that you should never say never, because otherwise you may end up doing exactly what you said never to. And I've actually learned that lesson many times as well. Never say never. All right. Well, welcome, Wendy. I am so excited to have you on Red Hot Mindset today. I am excited to dive into your story. I think that this story of overcoming is really, really going to bless those listening. And I think it's really going to inspire them to get up and get going and to go after something that they thought was maybe a little too hard or, just out of their reach. And so I'm really excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. But before we get going, I want to hear a little bit. Will you just share with us a little bit about you and your family, where you're coming from?
Sure. So I'm Canadian. I'm currently living in Ottawa, the nation's capital, and I'm married for 17 years. My husband's also a marathoner, working on his BQ as well. I have one daughter who's 13, and she's a competitive cheerleader. So her extracurricular activities keep us busy as well. I work for the Federal Public Service and started running in 2012 when the government was going through some pretty extreme workforce cutbacks. And my day job is a human resources professional. And at that time, I was responsible for counseling and meeting with the employees that were affected by the workforce situation. And it was stressful, but you can't be crying in the office with them. I had to be supportive, and I had to be strong, provide information, and be there for them. But at the end of the day, I was carrying a lot of burden. So I took up running. I just started running just short distances to begin with. I worked my way up to a 5K within like 3 months. I think I did my first race. And the next spring, I did my first half marathon. I skipped over the whole 10K distance, went straight to half marathoning. And in 2015, so 3 years later, I did my first marathon. So I didn't jump into it right away. And I know a lot of people just, jump straight, but I think you have to respect the distance. And it's not been an easy ride, but it's been a journey, I think, is the best way to put it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, got into running. Were you into sports when you were younger, or what was it that kind of appealed to you about the running?
I was in some sports as a child. I did like t-ball when I was younger, softball in high school. I was never really athletic. I always liked doing aerobic exercises, and I did that quite a bit in my my early 20s and when I was younger, but I was never really an athlete. It was just running was something that I could do to get away and to escape and just be by myself, but get out that physical exertion. And yeah, it just became a passion.
I love it.
I was a late bloomer to the running scene.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's okay. Hey, starting late is better than never, right? And so I don't think it's ever too late to pick up an activity or to dream big dreams or any of that. And so I think that's cool that you were late to the game, so to speak, but not really. Now, it took you a few years before you ran your first marathon. When did you decide, like, yep, this is something I want to do? And what was that first marathon like for you?
Um, I think when I felt that I was solid in the half marathon, and I mean, I certainly had been PBing all along, but I felt that it was time to take it to the next level. And I remember being at our local run club, and there was one day the marathoners were doing 29 kilometers that day, and I just went, that's crazy. That is just crazy talk. And the more I thought about it, the more I wanted the challenge. I'm somebody who's very competitive with myself. I'm not really competitive with others, but I'm competitive with myself in doing better and being better. And it was just a goal. It was one of those bucket lists of I want to run a marathon. So in the summer of 2015, I joined our running room clinic and had some great instructors who motivated our groups. I trained with a fantastic group of people. And it was through the summer heat, which was crazy. I hadn't really anticipated, running 29, 30, 32 kilometers in crazy Ottawa summer heat. But it was doable, and the more we built up the distance, the more it seemed achievable, and the more it scared the heck out of me. But again, it was that inner challenge that I really needed to do. So I signed up for the Toronto Scotiabank Waterfront Marathon in Toronto, Canada, which touts itself as flat, fast, and festive. Um, I didn't find it all that flat. It was festive. Um, and I was really inspired because there's an out and back section along the waterfront in Toronto. And just the way I had paced, I was on an out and back with the elites. And I remember that sense of getting chills. And I was about, 8 kilometers in, still having quite a ways to go, and it just gave me this surge of adrenaline, and oh my gosh, I am running a marathon. It was just sort of an out of body surreal experience. That section of the course was pretty flat, so it was good. And I was piggybacking with a pace group. I was aiming for a 4 hour, and the pace bunny for the run walk. I was pretty much doing continuous. I would stop for just water stations, and so we kept piggybacking. They would go ahead of me, and then I would pass them. And then at about 30 kilometers, I just got tired because they were in a pack, and it was frustrating. So at about 30 kilometers, I'd had enough of the pace bunny and the pack of 20 kids that were, chatting. And I was thinking, are you guys not tired? Why are you? Because they were always chatting and talking the whole time. So I said I've had enough. I'm going to kick it up a little bit, and I finished in 3:55:37. And I was like, this was my first marathon. I was a newbie, and at that time, I had thought the Boston qualifying standard was 3:55:59 because they had changed it in 2013, I think. So I mean, it's 2 years later. I should have known better, but for about 2 hours, I thought I had qualified, and then when I realized I didn't, it was this big bubble bursting, but that really is what set into motion my quest for qualifying. Was thinking that I had been so close, but then the other side of it is breaking that sub 4 is a barrier that a lot of marathoners strive for, and doing it in my first go round was something that really inspired me, that if I could do that on number one, what could I do on subsequent? Which is a whole other story in and of itself. But
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, breaking that 4 hour, that's something that a lot of marathoners strive for. And they work really, really hard for that.
Mhm.
And to do it in your first go around is a really amazing feat. So you thought, oh, I'm just off this qualification. Now I got to get there. But it took you multiple marathons
Mhm.
to actually hit the goal. So can you tell us just a little bit about that journey and maybe some things that you did differently on the marathon that you hit that BQ?
Yes. Um, it's kind of a complicated story. So there were 7 more marathons in between number one and the marathon that I qualified at, which was in 2018. Um, I was plagued with injuries. The one thing that I hadn't mentioned, actually, which is a big part of my story, is I have MS. So I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2002, which sort of adds complications to my running life because I'm easily fatigued. I don't have the same energy levels that, kind of what I call normal people would. Um, and I have a bit of drop foot, more pronounced on my right side, but also on my left. So it takes extra effort to make each step count. Um, and the drop foot also impacts my gait. So I was plagued with injuries. I had a marathon that I showed up at the start line with a fever of 102. So that BQ attempt was like, it was about 2 minutes before the gun went off before I realized this is not going to happen today, and why are you even trying? So I just took that as a fun run. I ran it. It poured rain for the first 2 hours of it, so it was what it was. I had some other marathons that were really just fun runs, that they weren't intended to be BQs. My husband and I ran the Athens Marathon in 2016 because my sister lives in Athens. So, when in Athens, we plan vacations around marathons.
Absolutely.
Um, I ran uh, yeah, I ran Philadelphia in 2017 after a previous fall one that had been my BQ attempt that just didn't materialize. I ran Wineglass in 2017 as part of my redemption year. So 2016, so the year following my first marathon was I had planned my trifecta. I was planning a half marathon in April, the full marathon in May, and a 50-kilometer ultra in June. That was my plan. That was my goal. I trained very hard all winter. I did a lot of treadmill kilometers because in Ottawa we have lots of snow and lots of cold. And my run buddies here know that winter is not Wendy weather. So lots of treadmill kilometers. And the Ottawa Marathon in 2016. So I had run the half marathon in April. I PB'd it. I was fully trained up and feeling really good. Was starting a new program. So I hit the start line of the Ottawa Marathon, feeling okay. My training had gone well, but I had had some niggles in the days leading up to the marathon. And in the first kilometer, I struggled and I was feeling something in my foot that wasn't good. By 5 kilometers, I knew that it wasn't going to be a BQ, so had a little minor meltdown. By 9 kilometers, I was watching all of my friends pass me because I was in so much pain. And then I DNF'd at 12 kilometers. and had a friend pick me up. Stood at the 35-kilometer line, so all my friends passing me at 35 kilometers as I'm standing on the sidewalk with crutches, because we'd stopped for crutches, was hard. And a couple of weeks later, I found out that I had broken my heel. So I broke my calcaneus in the middle of the Ottawa Marathon. So my year of the trifecta didn't happen. My 50-kilometer ultra I watched. So it was a hard year. I sat out the whole summer in a boot, resting my leg, and I had 4 weeks to train for Athens. So Athens was a nice country stroll that day. It was slow as molasses, but I got it done and finished in the beautiful Panathenaic Stadium, and it's a bucket list marathon for anybody. I can't. You have to do it once in your life.
Yeah, it sounds.
So that led into 2000. It's the finish line is like no other. You're running into the ancient Olympic Stadium, and it was breathtaking. And I just thinking about it, I have flashbacks and the chills of finishing, and I still have the olive branches that were given to me along the course by the locals, that they pass out olives. So I ran with an olive branch in my hydration pack, and I still have it. And actually, I was just dusting the other day and came across it and went, oh. So 2017 was my year of redemption. I did do my half, my full, and my ultra in 2017, but I was injury plagued for a lot of the year. I dealt with a lot of IT band issues, and I didn't have a lot of strength. I was very fit, and I had, my cardio was good, but I didn't have the strength that kept me injury free. So I'll probably chat about that a little bit later. But strength, you can't overlook strength training when you're marathoning if you're looking for fantastic results. They both have to be combined, and I'm a reformed strength training person now. So 2017 was an okay year. I didn't hit my BQ targets. Just it was a hard year. My dad was diagnosed with cancer in 2017 as well. So that was a bit of a hardship of knowing it was lung cancer, which anybody who, sorry, not lung cancer, liver cancer. So anybody who has experience with liver cancer knows that it's generally not a good outcome. So he did well, and he surprised a lot of doctors, and we had a lot of hope in some of the treatments he had. And so that led into 2018. Again, another training cycle. My spring marathon didn't hit the time I wanted. I think my spring marathon that year was Ottawa, and it was stifling hot. And you can only go with the training you have and the conditions you have on the day. And some days are meant to be, and some days aren't. You don't always see it that way in the day and in the moment. So dusted myself off, picked myself up again, started training again for my fall marathon, which was Petite Reine du Nord in Saint Jérôme, Quebec, which I'll have to put a plug in for that one once we're out of COVID world. It's a beautiful marathon. It is a screaming fast downhill marathon in Saint Jérôme, Quebec in early October. The colors are stunning. It's a gravel bike course, and it's beautiful. It's not very packed. It's I don't know, great. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I struggled in the last 10 kilometers. I hit a wall. And I was struggling with that in marathon number one. I didn't hit a wall, and I don't know if it was just because I was competitive and I was pushing, and my friends back home knew what time I was aiming for, which I learned after that to never do. In this marathon, the I let the mental get the better of me, and I hit the wall in about 29, 30 kilometers. So I had 12 to go, and I felt myself fading. I dropped off my BQ pace, and I just saw it slipping away. I still finished sub four, had a great time, but I was 2 minutes off of my standard, 2 minutes and 41 seconds off of the open standard. Okay, dust myself off, pick myself up, train into 2019. So just I never quit, don't quit. I sort of, to quote, I think it was Miley Cyrus, can't stop, won't stop.
Love it.
This episode is brought to you by my book, Mind Over Marathon, Overcoming Mental Barriers in the Race of Life. If you feel like you just need a mindset shift because you are going after a goal and need some direction and encouragement, this book is for you. It will help you to ignite a passion and purpose in your life, clarify your unique game plan, and build confidence in who you are. At the end of each chapter are a quick faith devotional, thought-provoking questions, and a practical application that you can implement immediately. This book is about discovering a dream and taking it from inception to a flourishing finish. Running is optional. You can snag 2 free chapters at www.redhotmindset.com/mindovermarathon. Dream huge, and remember, you are a winner, just run your race.
So 2019, I really struggled with my MS in the spring. I was having a pseudo relapse. So a pseudo relapse is really old symptoms were flaring up. My lower limbs were rock hard all the time. So it really made moving at the joints difficult. They were fatigued within 1 kilometer. So if you can imagine running with a Charlie horse, kind of all day, every day, that's what it was like. So I dropped down to a half for the spring and just said, I need to get better. I need to rest, relax, and not stress myself out over this. It'll come when it comes. And then the Boston qualifying window opened in September of 2019. And I was in Facebook one day, and I don't even remember which group it was in. And somebody had posted about the adaptive program. And I had never heard of such a beast in my entire life. So I looked it up right away, and the adaptive program is a program that the BAA has that allows athletes with physical challenges and physical, I think it's eyesight, if you look at the, mobility impaired. So I looked it up, and their qualifying standard was 6 hours. And I went,
Oh, wow.
and I looked at the eligibility. For it, and my case, so to speak, qualified me in the adaptive program. So, and I had a 2 hour and 2 minute buffer on the standard from my 2018 marathon. I forgot to mention, actually, the Petite Marathon that I qualified at, my father had passed away 3 weeks before that. So the last 5 weeks of my training were pretty non-existent, and the last 5 weeks are peak weeks normally, because I was dealing with, I was sitting by his bedside. We'd also had a vacation in Disney just before that. So between Disney and being called home, it really. So I didn't go into it with a lot of hopes. I still did well. But that day, I really felt like I had an angel on my back. I had a picture of him with an in memoriam sign that day. So I had a lot of inspiration from other runners who would give me a pat as they ran by, as they passed me. So So hearing about the adaptive program a year later and knowing that I had qualified at that race where I felt like my dad was with me and he knew that that was always my goal, it was just sort of meant to be. And I get emotional talking about it because I miss him dearly. He was my biggest cheerleader. But you have to go on and you have to chase your dreams. So I immediately called my neurologist's office. I sent the forms, and her administrative assistant was so amazing because you don't think of doctors being very efficient necessarily. And I had the signed forms that I needed for the BAA within 24 hours. I sent them to the BAA with my registration at the close of the first week before they opened up the second round. And within 24 hours, I had an email being accepted to the 2020 Boston Marathon.
Wow.
So
That is so so cool.
it was a bit of a dream come true because I had been waiting and hoping and running hard and dealing with injuries, dealing with mental blocks, dealing with all of the personal hardship that I had dealt with trying to manage my disease, manage a family, because marathoning is hard and taking time out of your day to train all those hours. Plus my husband being a marathoner, we were both squeezing in time where we could. It was just like this weight had been lifted off. There was another side of it though where I felt that I wasn't really worthy of being accepted because I didn't really qualify. And it was a challenge and a struggle that I dealt with internally. I had a lot of support from my community. Most people were pretty accepting, but it was difficult because it wasn't the open standard, even though I was only 2 minutes off of the open standard. And I deal with a disability and a disease that not that nobody else does, but that not a lot of other marathoners do. So I'm proud of my accomplishments. I trained hard. I remember it was December 17th, 2019 is when my official plan started. I was by that point I was on Hal Higdon. I was following his program. It worked well for me. It worked well for me. I stayed injury free for the cycle before that, and then life started getting a little crazy at the beginning of the year. You started seeing and hearing more about cancellations. And then Tokyo, I think, was the first one that got canceled. And after Tokyo was canceled, I pretty much knew it was a foregone conclusion that Boston would get, if not canceled, postponed. So sure enough, it was postponed till September. But I'm pretty realistic, and I knew, especially as things progressed, it wasn't happening. I was very realistic to know that Boston September of 2020 was not happening. So they made the call. I don't even remember when they made the call. May, I think it was. I think it was around May that they made the call to do it virtual. Mm-hmm. And I think it was May because I had a 4-week buffer, so I restarted my training program, and then I restarted it again with 4 months to go, or with 18 weeks to go.
Right.
So I kind of started it 3 times to get to the start line. So I trained hard all summer, and because of my disease, COVID really isolated our family, and we saw no one. We had no visitors, no family, no social circle, no bubbles, no. We had the people within our house. I had lots of great outdoor distance visit with friends in the summer, and backyard chats, which were good for the mental health. But I did all my training by myself. My husband joined me on a couple of the longer runs, but he's faster than I am, so we don't train together. So it was hard, and especially early COVID, sort of March, April, when the weather here was still yucky. I had changed to working from home, from at the office to working at home exclusively. I had extra time on my hands. So I wasn't commuting 45 to an hour every day one way. Um, lunch hours was here. Everything was teleconference, so nobody saw what I looked like. So I did a lot of training. I got up before work and I did strength training videos. I would do my runs at lunchtime. Did a lot of strength training, and that's why I say I'm a reformed um, strength training person, because I just saw the strength that I was building. The running became easier, I felt, because I was stronger. Um, and I lost 15 pounds from this March to the race in September.
You didn't gain that
Um,
COVID.
and I did
You
not
lost
gain the
the
COVID-19.
15.
I'm yeah, I'm actually now I'm thinking at I'm almost at the COVID minus 19, which is I'll take it. I'll take it. So I think that the combination of strength training, dropping some weight, and what I said earlier is that I was cardio fit. Like I was always very fit, but I was never strong, and that's I think why I was always injured. That the strength training really took it up a notch. I did the great virtual race across Tennessee this summer as well, so that kept my mileage up. That was the 1,000-kilometer race across Tennessee that Lazarus Lake put on. I don't know if you've
I haven't heard of that, so
um,
look it up.
it started May 1st and finished August 31st, and you basically ran from the southwest corner of Tennessee to the northeast corner of Tennessee. You entered your mileage every day in a spreadsheet, and you got a beautiful medal for completing 1,021 kilometers in 4 months.
Wow.
So that I was a little competitive with myself, and I finished that in like 83 days. So it helped. It helped because I had built up the strength a little bit by that point. I continued that through the summer, and I vowed that, even if Boston was going to be virtual, I was, come hell or high water, I was going to do it because I wanted
Yes.
I wanted my unicorn. I've waited for 5 years for a chance to get a unicorn, and I was going to. So I trained hard, um, and we were graced by a very, very amazing runner in our community who sort of took on the role of race director. There were 8 of us in my community that ran the virtual that day, and she planned an event that was second to none. We had signs, we had water stations, all with COVID protocols in place. We were all masked at the start. We were distanced because everybody sort of ran their own race. So I was able to run my Boston virtual on a beautiful sunny afternoon in September, and I had asked a friend to pace me, and he's an amazing pacer. He's sort of semi-professional pacer. He's done a lot um, in the past, and he's a gem, and I'm forever grateful. He had a baby a couple of weeks prior to the virtual, so not a lot of sleep with a newborn. And I said, you know what? How about join me for the last 20K? Like if you can do like the last 20K, because that's when I normally blow up, and where I let my mind get the better of me. So that was the plan. I sort of gave him my strategy going in, was that ideally I wanted a PB because I hadn't PB'd since Toronto, since my very first marathon. So it was a long road, a disappointing 5 years of trying and trying and trying and not getting there. And I trained hard all summer, lost some weight, did my strength training, showed up at the start line, my usual nervous wreck, because I'm always nervous going into races, which is part of my mental struggles that I have. I did my first 21K solo and was feeling phenomenal. And he said when he caught me at 21, he says, I wasn't expecting you for another 9 minutes.
Wow.
So I was ahead of where I wanted to be. And then he paced me for the final 21. And at one point I said, okay, I need you to just take over pacing. I want to just not think. I want to just follow. I just want to just move my legs, move my arms, and I just want to follow. And I was looking at my watch every now and then. And I was like, if I'm doing my math right, I think I can PB today. Like, I think that we're doing okay. And I said, "Can you do some math for me?" So bless his soul, he's mathing while we're running, and mathing is hard in a marathon. When you're getting up there, it is hard. And so we're like, "Yeah, we can totally PB today." Um, and my PB again was 3:55, 40 or 37, and I just wanted sub 3:55. And I finished in uh, 3:49:59.
Wow.
So not only a PB, but a PB by 5 minutes, which for me was amazing, but more so, and I think really where the determination and the grit that I had leading up to that was, had it been a real race and had I had that performance in a real race, it was a BQ in the open category by over 5 minutes.
Wow.
So I just it was a it, I just felt redeemed that I had hit the open standard. It's not official, it's not legit. I get that, but had it been, I just feel like I would have had that little ounce of redemption of, yeah, I really do deserve to be here. So
Yeah. And you do. You definitely do. I mean, we're going to talk about some of these barriers that you had to overcome. I'm looking forward to talking about that. But just the fact that in a virtual race, you had a PB and not just any PB, not like a couple seconds. You smashed it
yeah,
like 6 minutes.
yeah,
I mean, that's
yeah,
just intense.
yeah.
And do you have anything that you can think of that was the reason? Because I know virtual is harder for most people. Like we don't have the adrenaline of race day. We don't get that atmosphere. Do you think it came down to adding in that strength? Was it mindset? Where were you at? What made that difference?
Uh, it was all of the above. Strength and dropping some racing weight for sure. Do you have to lose weight to race well? Absolutely not. Like,
Hmm.
absolutely not, and that's not the message that I want to send. That morning, I have to say, I was very determined, and similar to my first, it was the first time where after the fact, I really felt that I had the same mindset as I did for my first,
Mm.
as I did that day. I was very determined to show up and do it. And I just didn't let my body say no, you can't. A lot of it was mind over matter. A lot of it too was, I had some great crowd support. We had water stations where I was never more than 5 kilometers away from friendly faces. So I knew that, okay, I've only got a 5 kilometer stretch, and then I'll see so and so, and then another 5 kilometers, and I'll see more friendly faces. And I remember kind of flying around a corner. I had just hit 21.1, and I had some friends right at that spot. And I remember flying by saying, oh, I just ran a 151 half. And it was just, I was on cloud nine. Like, I just felt like I was performing the way I had wanted to. I mean, I was worried about blowing up in the second half, but I had, it was all of the factors came together on that day. The training worked, the mental worked, the support worked, and I was really determined that nothing was going to get in my way that day, and that I was going to achieve for myself, for nobody else, but for myself. And that, I think, is what made the difference.
A lot of things have to come together on race day, and there's so much out of our control. The only things we really can control are what we did up till race day and how we
react to whatever is going on race day.
Can we say excuse remover? Wendy has a full schedule of work, a daughter in competitive cheerleading, and an MS diagnosis that affects her energy. Yet she's still out there fighting for her goals every day and won't let anything take her out. She's fought injury and mental barriers, and she's come out victorious. And I love these kinds of stories. We had so much to talk about that I decided to split this interview into 2 parts. So stay tuned Thursday for the second portion, and you don't want to miss it because we dive deeper into her trials and the mindsets that she's had to break in order to reach her goals. The second part is super applicable and full of great advice and lessons she's learned along her own journey. We'll see you there.